Welcome back. Today we're on step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We came to, and we came to believe. I mentioned in the first recording that I wasn't fond of all of that we stuff. I wasn't fond of having to be part of this larger something that has saved my life, that has saved my sanity, in some ways probably has saved my soul. But we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Notice that there's no mention of God or deity in this step. It says a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The early writers of these steps understood that if they tried to impose any kind of a deity or religion or anything like that into these steps, that an awful lot of people would die, because there are people who do not believe in the same traditions that I believe in, and you can recover not believing in the God of my understanding. But there is no God in this step explicitly. What it says is a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. But first, came to, and came to believe. You've probably heard that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I mentioned that in the first recording, that I really believed that every day that I got up, that today was going to be different. I was going to get in that ring. I was going to go toe to toe with that gorilla. And this time I was going to walk out a winner. It did not happen. It never happened. But I kept trying every day, doing the same thing. I mean, I tweaked it a little bit. I might try using this instead of that, maybe a little bit more of this and a little bit less of that. But it was still the same insane behaviors. There is a belief among many of us in recovery that the addict walks around with 3 fears. 3 fears. The fear of losing something we have, the fear of not getting something we want, and the fear of being found out. The fear of losing something we have, the fear of not getting something we want, and the fear of being found out. And that last one was big for me. I believe that more than anything else, it is what drove my addiction. It is what drove those many years that I drove myself into a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, because I was so afraid I was going to be found out. We came to, and we came to believe. I had failed at getting myself straight, and so I needed to believe that there was something greater than me that could bring me back to some kind of sanity. Father Martin talks about a sweet dependence on each other, and I love those words. I came to have that sweet dependence on my fellows in 12-step recovery. That is how I got restored to sanity. Because see, in my nature and in my addiction, I am self-centered, self-seeking, and self-absorbed. It is all about me. And if you love someone who is addicted, if you are friends with someone or work with someone who's addicted and you think they are so selfish, it's all about them, you're right. Because that is what the disease is about. It's about self. Self-centeredness, self-seeking, self-absorption. It's all about me. And in our addictions, we will take whatever we have. We will rob whoever we need to. We will lie, steal, deceive whoever we need to keep that addiction going. But the insanity of the addiction isn't just what we do when we're using. It's also what we do when we are physically clean and sober, and then pick up that next drink. I mean, now that's real insanity. So if you're a math person, you've already done the math. I said I came into the rooms in 1985. I said that I have 20 years of unbroken clean time. So clearly there was a break in there somewhere. I was in recovery for 8 of the 10 years, from 1985 to 1995. I did not have a drink or a drug. But here's the thing, for 8 of those years, I did everything I was supposed to do. I got right in the middle of the herd. I got busy during service because service is the best defense against a relapse. I was active in my local groups and my home group. I was active on the higher levels. I had a sponsor. I was sponsoring other people. I was in the literature. I was in the rooms. I was growing. It was great. For 8 years, everything that I had lost had come back. The cash and prizes was back. I was getting promoted at work, getting raises. It was great. I had a wonderful life. And I had wanted to change careers after my son went off to college. And I thought this is a good time to go to graduate school because my mind was clear again. So I could. And so I did. I got into graduate school and I was working full time. I was going to graduate school full time. I was a single mom of a teenager, and I was active in community volunteering work. I was a superwoman. I mean, I was having it all. And slowly I stopped going to meetings because I had all the other stuff going on. I pulled away from doing service. My sponsor moved away. A call to her would have been long distance back in the days when there was something called long distance, and I didn't get a new sponsor. I mean, alcohol and drugs were simply not part of my life anymore. I mean, they were not a factor in my life anymore. I'm out here smoking now. I mean, I am killing it. I'm doing well at work. I'm getting A's in graduate school. The kid is doing well. It was wonderful. And I didn't think I needed the rooms anymore. I didn't think I needed that we anymore because I was on a roll. But those 3 fears, fear of losing something I have, fear of not getting what I want, and the fear of being found out, they were still with me. I didn't realize it, but because I wasn't working the steps and I wasn't working the program, I didn't realize it. And so I'm out there doing what I'm doing and understand it was all good. It was all good what I was doing, except that fear of being found out, it was there. And in the rooms, they tell you that if you are in recovery, while you're in recovery, doing what you're doing, you can keep the addiction at bay. But meanwhile, the disease is out in the parking lot doing push-ups, just waiting for an opportunity, just waiting for that slip up, just waiting for that little teeny opening. And what I know today is that my relapse did not happen when I put that cup to my lips. The relapse happened in my mind. Before I ever put that cup to my lips, the relapse had happened in my mind. When I had that idea that alcohol and drugs are not a factor in my life anymore, and I don't need to do what I've been doing for 8 years, that's when the relapse really happened. The miracle is that I went 2 years and didn't drink or drug. That's the real miracle. But I was in a church on Thanksgiving Eve, and in my church, we call it wine, but it's grape juice. But this was an Anglican church, and I knew that was real wine in the communion cup. I knew it. I had always refused real wine in a communion cup. But that night, I drank that little teeny thimble of wine. And it was Thanksgiving Eve, so they had a little social downstairs after the service. They invited me to come downstairs, and the leftover wine was poured into little Dixie cups and shared with everybody. And I drank that too. This was a little teeny bit. And when I left that church that night, my brain, my mind said, you know what? The problem was vodka and cocaine. That was what the problem was. But a little bit of wine is not going to hurt you. I mean, Jesus drank wine, right? This is communion wine, so there's no way that can be a problem. And I drove home with that thought germinating. The disease was back, and it was going to grab me by my throat and throw me to the ground in that ring for another 7 years. And I did not run to the liquor store right away. I did not call the dope man right away. As a matter of fact, I don't know if it was a week, 2 weeks before I actually went and bought some wine. And I didn't go to a liquor store. See, this is how the disease works, right? I didn't go to a liquor store like I used to. I went to a wine and spirits shop. You know, one of those places where they spell shop, S-H-O-P-P-E, right? I mean, this is a high class wine and spirits shop. And I bought a very expensive bottle of wine and I went home and I sipped it like a normal person. And everything was fine. Everything was not fine because it didn't take me very long to realize it was not economical for me to be buying these expensive bottles of wine. I could not afford this. And I discovered that wine came in boxes. I had no idea that wine came in boxes. You get 5-liter boxes of wine, and it was kind of cheap. And that was more in line with my budget. And this person who had gone from incomprehensible, pitiable demoralization 10 years prior, all of a sudden was on that slippery slope back. And now I've got my status job, I've got my status car, I'm wearing my status clothes, I'm living large, and I'm also riding around with 5-liter boxes of wine in my trunk. Because it didn't take very long for me to get back to where I was at the beginning. Just like those old timers said, the disease was out in the parking lot doing push-ups, waiting for that little entry. And I got to the place where, I mean, I was a blackout drinker almost immediately. After 10 years of having no substance in my body, I was a blackout drinker almost immediately. I know that because I won an award at graduate school, and I called some friends to tell them about it. And they all said, yeah, I know, you called me the other day. And I had no recollection. So I was already a blackout drinker. I thought I was going to be able, just smoke a little weed, just have an occasional joint to chill, like some people come home and have a glass of brandy. I was just going to come home and have a glass of wine, and just have a little, but you know what? That did not work because I have a disease of more. If something changes my mood, I want more. If it feels good, if it tastes good, I want more. And because I felt less than, I needed more. Because that's what's underneath my addiction, is that I feel less than. Why would I feel less than? I mean, I was a fairly competent, capable person. But I grew up with a mama who didn't want to be sick either, but she was. She was an alcoholic and she had another mental disorder. And she would, get in her cups and she would tell me how she didn't love me, she didn't want me, having me ruined her life. She wished I'd never been born. And a young child takes that in. A young child believes what the people around them say. And so I believed that I was unlovable. I believed I was unwanted. I believed I was unworthy, except my mother did praise me when I did well. She was not affectionate or nurturing, But if I got A's, or if I got awards, or if I got whatever it is that they do for little kids, I was praised for that. And as I grew, whenever I did something noteworthy or praiseworthy, I was praised for that, but never just for being who I am. Never just for being her child, whom of course she loved because that's her child. And I spent a lot of years afraid that someday someone would find out that I was a fraud, that I wasn't what I pretended to be. I wasn't as smart as I pretended to be. I wasn't as talented as I pretended to be. I wasn't as capable as I pretended to be. You all were going to find out. And the fear of that just drove me deeper and deeper and deeper into my addiction. It is a pain that is hard to describe. That pain of, is today the day they're going to know that this is all a sham? I am a sham, a fraud. They're going to figure it out. They're going to cast me out. Nobody's going to want me. Nobody loves me. And today may be the day that they find out. And if you are here because you love someone who is addicted and you're thinking, but my child was loved. My brother was nurtured. That's not the case here. Everybody's different and comes from a different place. But I am here to say that what we learn in the rooms is that eventually we will hear our story. And so in my case, I didn't grow up in a nurturing home. I grew up with alcoholics. Somebody else may have grown up in a home where there was no booze, no drugs. Everybody was wonderful. They were perfectly normal, good members of society. They were loved and cherished and all of that. But still, there was something inside of them that feared that someday they wouldn't get what they wanted. They would lose what they had, and they would be found out. And so there's an insanity before we ever pick up. I mean, how can we be here and not know that we are wanted? The fact that we are here on the earth, making trips around the sun. Obviously, we were meant to be here. But there is a torment inside of the addict that you will never understand unless you too are an addict. And so we come together and we come to believe that something greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. And it does not have to be religious. For many people, it isn't. Some people have made God, G-O-D, group of drunks. That's the we. That's the power greater than themselves. For some people, G-O-D is good, orderly direction. And there's some people who use HP for higher power. Well, there are people for whom that's still too kind of godlike. And so it's HP, higher purpose. Whatever it is, we need to believe that something bigger than us can restore us to sanity, because it is insanity to start every day the way that I started at the end of my using both times. Because I don't know, I might still be using if I wasn't incarcerated, if it had still been working, but it wasn't working at the end. The ease and comfort was not there. The euphoria was not there. I'm riding around with boxes of wine in my car because I need a drink every couple of hours, or I'm gonna get dope sick quick. I was using just to not be sick at the end, waking up in the middle of the night, reaching for something so I could pass out again. I mean, I knew about coming to when I saw that on the step, came to, I thought, oh, I know about coming to, because I spent a lot of years passing out and coming to, passing out, coming to, dry heaves, throwing up, trying to keep something down so that maybe I can have coffee. Maybe I can brush my teeth today. Maybe I can shower and get dressed and go to work and look and act like other people. Maybe. The insanity is real. This is not a clinical insanity, at least for most of us, but the insanity is real. We will pick up at step 3 in the next session, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him.